Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here in Germany today for our Sagamore tasting for Germany, our Germany release basically together with
Brian Treacy, president and co-founder of Sagamore Spirit.
Excellent. Thank you once again for taking time for us to share with us here in Germany and Europe, for that matter, a little bit about the company, a little bit about the bottles. I'm so excited to have this brand here. Got my shirt on. I represented you at the BCB in Berlin, and I'm really, really excited about what we have here. All right, I'm going to say hi to a couple people in the chat real quick. Hi, everyone, says Roichelux, also here. Dirk says here from Exhibition Whiskey, Rye Wednesday, not Whiskey Wednesday. Very, very good. Here we have, hello everyone. I'm very excited what Sagamore can do. Cheers. It's not Friday, it's Wednesday, but it is Rye Day. Very good. Anik, hi there. Great Rye whiskey. Very good. She got a bottle as well. MTB also says hello everyone. Sven says hello everyone. And also Ruben says hello everyone. And Sven basically says the Northern German hi. All right, and here David says, hi, lads. Very good to see you. Yeah, very good. So if you could talk English and write English, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. So a lot of people got sets out there. A lot of retailers also in Germany are going to either watch this live with us now or is going to watch it also then in the replay. No problem. It's just my typical time of the day after work, 9 o'clock my time, 3 o'clock your time in Baltimore, Maryland. Brian, I'm just going to hand it over to you now, and you're going to take us through this tasting together. All those out there that have the samples or the bottles, you can pour it in your glass already, and we'll be learning a lot about what Maryland rye is and what Sagamore actually differentiates itself from others.
Yes. So thank you, Whiskey Jason, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in and giving us the opportunity to tell you a little bit about who Sagamore is and the history of distilling in Maryland and Baltimore. And, of course, we'd love to describe a little bit about what makes our products unique and different. And then, of course, you have to taste some whiskey. So thank you again, for everybody. I will try to make this fun and educational. And, of course, we always welcome any questions. And I'll do my best to ask those, and I'll rely on Jason to flag me and slow me down when those come in or whatever may be best. And then, but we do have a little presentation we'll start with, Jason, if that's okay.
Yes, no problem.
Great. So Sagamore Spirit, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Maybe some of you folks know that there is a rich history of distilling in Maryland that goes back to the 1600s when it was predominantly rum at the time. But if you fast forward from there, eventually, we didn't want to pay our taxes and tariffs as they started to show up from on the British West Indies from the molasses and sugars that we were importing for the rum. And luckily, Baltimore is located on the Chesapeake Bay, an extension of the Atlantic Ocean, where we have a very large location for immigration, second largest site for immigration to the U.S. outside of Ellis Island. So we had a tremendous amount of folks from Poland, Germany, Scotland, Ireland, who knew how to distill grain-based type products already. We grew a lot of tobacco and we used a lot of rye as a cover crop. So instead of paying taxes and tariffs and just knowing we wanted a good dram, we ended up switching predominantly over to, if not exclusively over to rye whiskey in the early 1700s. So we have a history of distilling that goes back, though, 140 plus years before Kentucky was even a state. And then of course, luckily, after we kind of come out of there, we do have a little issue with the British with the Revolutionary War. And
tiny little thing,
yeah, a little something there. When we come out of there, they decide the government's going to decide to raise taxes on the distilleries to help pay down the deficit from the Revolutionary War. And this is when families such as Jacob and Mary Beam from the Beam family, Basil Hayden, the Cecil family, those types of families started leaving Maryland for places that eventually would be called Kentucky in 1792. But, they were avoiding basically the whiskey rebellion that started the Mid-Atlantic region and went up through Pennsylvania, where distillers were rebelling against paying these higher excises tax. But we always think it's interesting that a lot of folks don't know that some of the legendary Kentucky distillers started here in Maryland. Here, luckily, the whiskey rebellion ends peacefully. Taxes do not escalate, and distilling continues to flourish in the United States. Here is a picture of the state of Maryland, where we have in 1910, 44 distilleries, all making rye whiskey, 21 in downtown Baltimore. We kept making it through Prohibition. That's one of the reasons Maryland is called the Free State. But unfortunately, as time went on, we had another agricultural act from the government when they started paying to subsidize corn and paying farmers to stop growing rye in 1933 to help with ethanol production. And unfortunately, Maryland's distilleries didn't make much of a comeback after that. And the last distillery closed its doors in the early 1980s and sold that name off to Heaven Hill, Pikesville Rye. But we thought it was very interesting that Maryland style rye. Yes, exactly, Jason.
Yep.
If you're familiar with that, everyone knows that as a Kentucky rye whiskey. But if you read the back label, it's actually historically a Maryland rye whiskey. And we thought it was really interesting at Sagamore that Maryland was known as a superior rye whiskey producer, and that even the distilleries in Kentucky wanted to buy up those names as our distilling history kind of got quiet after the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that's really what's inspired us to get in it. And just so you don't think I'm making it up, there's some fun articles we have that talk about Maryland. It talks about the quality of the water here imparts to the liquor a flavor it doesn't get elsewhere, and the barometric pressure being more conducive to a sound fermentation. And for that reason, Maryland gets higher prices than that of Illinois, New England, or Canada. This is one of my favorites. It talks about importing from the Sherwood Distillery just north of Baltimore, 2,000 barrels to England for medicinal purposes, because we are still distilling through Prohibition. And then it talks about to throw the hijackers off that might want to rob the train of its whiskey, tell them the whiskey's coming from Kentucky, because it wasn't considered to be as good as the Maryland whiskey, which I always thought was wonderful. And then it talks about the vessel will have to have extra guards on it to protect it from pirates while at sea. So some fun historic articles there that talk about how Maryland rye whiskey was really considered superior and very sought after. Here's a whiskey table of whiskey held within bond in 1912 in the U.S. Obviously, at this point, Kentucky is way out in front as far as the large amount of whiskey held in bond. But it doesn't always mean it was the best whiskey, if you will, although, of course, we know they all make great whiskey today. Pennsylvania coming in second, and Maryland with close to 20 million gallons of whiskey held in bond. But what's interesting is as you come out of Prohibition, you'll see that Maryland held 1/3 of the nation's supply in 1936. 110 million gallons was held in bond. And so it goes to show you that we were continuing to still make a lot of whiskey during Prohibition, which I'm always proud of the state for doing. Some historic brands that you might be familiar with: Hunter, Lanahams. We talked about Pikesville, Monticello. Here's a picture of what I would refer to as the old Majestic Distillery. And Majestic Distillery actually still exists today. It's owned by Sazerac, and they do bottling here in Baltimore still today. We also still have the Guinness Brewery, the first one to open up in 80 years and the only one in the U.S., which is on the old Seagram's and Diageo distillery place just about 8 minutes down the road, where they still blend rum and things like that, but they don't make whiskey anymore. And it's really about the Guinness Brewery now, but some great history here. And, we always talk about the original American whiskey being rye whiskey, and that's why we often refer to it as bourbon's older brother, if you will. So
love that.
A little fun like that. But you might be asking, what is Maryland style rye? What makes Maryland rye unique and different? And I can talk a little bit about what is Sagamore doing in speaking to what we historically understand as Maryland rye. Maryland was known as a sweeter rye whiskey, and that might be due to not only having rye in the mash bill, but also corn and malt and things along those lines. Whereas our neighbors to the north from Pennsylvania, which make a beautiful rye whiskey, but more the Monongahela style, typically was 100% rye mash bill. And so go back a little bit, if I may, and I apologize if this is you know, I don't mean to offend anybody, but basic rye whiskey. So to be a rye whiskey in the U.S., our mash bill, our recipe, we do have to be at least 51% rye grain in the mash bill to be considered a rye whiskey and a straight rye whiskey. And we always want to be a straight rye whiskey here in Maryland. After that, we can add anything we want, whether it's corn, malt, wheat, whatever we'd like. And like I said, Pennsylvania rye was known as 100% rye mash bill, but Sagamore, we distill two mash bills. We distill one we call our high rye, which is 95% rye, 5% malted barley, and we'll age that separately 4 to 8 years, depending on the product. And then we also have one we call our barely legal rye because it's only 52% rye in the mash bill, so just 1% over the mandate. And then 43% corn and 5% malted barley. And we age that separately 4 to 8 years in new American charred oak barrels. And then every product that we make has a blend of those two mash bills. They come together, exactly, Jason. And the reason we do that is we like the rye spice that, you know, we associate with rye whiskey, the baking spices, the clove, the pepper, the nutmeg, the cinnamon, mint that we get from the high rye. But the low rye brings some interesting fruit, floral, and sweet notes in with it and creates what I consider a rye whiskey with some layers, some depth, and some roundness to it versus being very one-dimensional spice. And that is our take on a Maryland rye whiskey with that balance of rye spice, sweet, and fruit and floral notes in there as well. And then we proof everything using the limestone spring water from our farm at Sagamore Farm. So a little bit about what is Maryland rye, our history of distilling, what makes our mash bills unique and different. You don't see many people blending two straight ryes into every product. It's an added layer of step that adds a layer of, you know, complexity, but we think it's worth the complexity because it shows up in the bottle as well. So enough rambling. We should deserve a good drink right now. I love to start with our straight rye whiskey, or our signature rye whiskey, if you will. This one is aged 4 to 6 years. And as some of you may or may not know, kind of give you a very transparent approach too, as we're building out our distillery here in Baltimore. I started here in 2013. And it took us about 3 to 4 years to build out our distillery and get operational. And we knew it'd be a bad business to spend 4 years building a distillery, 4+ years aging whiskey before we collected any revenue. So we did start contract distilling at MGP in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is known for making great rye whiskey. But we didn't do just the 95.5 you might associate with them. We did the contract, a specialty mash bill with that 52%. And everything was contract distilled, wasn't necessarily sourced. And we worked with Larry Ebersold, who was the master distiller there for 25 years and worked there for about almost 41. Yeah. And so he's still involved with the project today, still very fortunate. But, you know, we've been operational here in Baltimore since early 2017. So I'm very proud to announce that now that we do have some whiskey that's about 4.5 years old, it is now blending into this bottle. So this product...
I have here the very first time I have here a blend of straight rye whiskeys. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is fabulous. So we just don't have MGP. We actually have MGP and Baltimore Sagamore whiskey together. And we're one of the first in Germany to get this. And I'm kind of happy. Thank you. I'm proud.
Well, you know, if it wasn't for you, Jason, I'm not sure you fought hard for that. So it was good on you. And, you know, there's still some states here in the U.S. that don't have it yet. But, you know, where we see good customers and good demand, we'll send the good whiskey, you know. And not that we're not saying good whiskey everywhere, but like I'm proud to say that Maryland's got some Maryland made whiskey in there. It's about 20% of the bottle. And then over the next couple of years, we'll continue to blend that in. This product is 4 to 6 years old. And we don't want to go away from that 6-year-old whiskey in there. We think it's a nice element. So it'll take us about 2 years to completely blend through this and make it 100% Maryland distilled, Maryland aged. But this is our beautiful take on a Maryland rye whiskey. It's 83% proof or 83 proof or 41.5% ABV.
Yes, we think more ABV over here in
Yes,
Europe, by the
ABV.
way.
Yes, of course. We'll be doing ABV going forward, of course. And what we wanted to do is Maryland was known as a very approachable, easy drinking rye. It wasn't very angular. It doesn't burn the back of your mouth. And that's exactly what we wanted to achieve with this whiskey. Something that was very easy to drink, but for a lower ABV, not 56% or anything like that, but a nice low ABV, still has nice flavor, has some complexity, some layers, tastes great, neat, but also can still stand up in a old fashioned or Manhattan. So on the nose with this, I typically do get some of that rye spice that I might associate with the baking spices. It's often some nice mint and some clove.
Yes.
Some citrus though in there, and a little bit of candied orange. And then on the palate, I'm always pleasantly surprised with the baking spices, some cinnamon, some mint. I often get a little bit of dried fruit, almost associated with like an apricot, and hints of vanilla in there as well. But it can vary a little bit. But this is kind of our workhorse, and one that does about 70% of our sales.
Now, just to put it into some type of comparison, at the moment, USA 70%. Over in England, it's about 50 to 60% of all bottles sold from Sagamore. At the moment, we're at the very beginning of introducing this into Germany. At the moment, it's the double wood that's selling 3-1 at the moment. All right, maybe we'll get to that in a moment. Is because that's my favorite, and everyone says if Jason likes it, I'm going to buy it as well. But this is very interesting that this is the very first time that I've actually tried the new bottle, because so far I've been working my way down through the old bottle, which I have here, which has none of your juice in it, and it's very, very interesting because the finish on this is actually much better. It has more of that rye type of aroma, has a little bit of longer, stronger finish, which I totally like. And it has a tiny little bit of, as you said, that citrus clove moment in there going on, which the other was a tiny little bit smoother, if I may use that word, silkier. And this has a little bit more of that, oh, I like this rye moment in there. I think it would stand up to any type of cocktail even better now. And if I understood you correctly here, and the question was, until we get the 100% Maryland rye, it's going to be between 2 and 4 years here in Germany. Is that about the right roadmap here?
Correct. So, the whiskey just turned, our oldest whiskey that we distilled and aged in Maryland is about 4.5 years old. Right. So give us another year and a half, almost 2. And then once that way, we like the idea of this we like where the blend tastes with an age of 4 to 6 year old whiskey in it. And we don't want to go backwards in age. So give us another, 20 months and we'll be there.
All right. Excellent. So the first person, Dick, he has a sample. He says the nose is flowers, fresh wood, herbs, mint, and fig. Very, very good. Here, the German question is, where can we buy these in Germany? This at the moment is €55.90 is the price. There is still the tariffs on it, unfortunately. They will fall in January 1st, so we're a little bit too early. But we wanted to get this product over here for that. And at many of the different online retailers and also local shops, you'll get this. As I said, we have over 50 people or 50 online and retail stores at the moment on our newsletter list, and many of these will be stocking that. If they don't have it yet, ask for it and say, hey, WhiskyJason knows where to get it, and I'll make sure that they also will be able to stock this and get it very, very nice. And by the way, the thing that everyone mentions, your bottle is not just beautiful, it's fantastic. I mean, I have received so many compliments from so many people that this is just one of the best bottles of the entire industry. And not only that, you have your 3 diamonds here, and you also have on your cork even, you have the 1909 and the diamonds again. I mean, where did you not brand it?
We did it. Yeah, it's all over the place, isn't it? And so just to give you a little insight on that bottle too, it is kind of a nod to the historic bottles that used to be made. We really were noticing when we were doing our homework, getting the company up and running, that glass was really a thing of art back in the 17 and 1800s. And then it kind of got boring in the 1900s, and it just, Baltimore actually had a lot of glass manufacturing here because we had so many distilleries, and a lot of them looked like they were hand blown. And we saw one particular bottle that was Walter's Rye, and it was 6-sided, embossed down the side, Baltimore, Maryland Baltimore on one side, Maryland on another, and
Sagamore.
Yeah,
beautifully done. I mean, come on.
And it kind of gave us it just inspired us to say, can you create something, that kind of gives a nod to the legacy here in Maryland, and then old meets new. And then, our logo is the 3 diamonds. So we kind of made it a little bit diamond shaped like that. And then from a manufacturing standpoint, the bottle has no front or back until we put a label on it. So we're less likely to screw up on the bottling line too.
Very, very good. That's one way of putting it. Yeah. There's a Japanese word for one way to do it, and that's the only way to do it. I forgot what it was, but maybe you use that system here as well. All right. Very good. All right. Should we go back to your presentation now?
Sure.
Good. You can continue in your flow here. All right.
Thank you, everybody. So our mission statement is very simple. It's to inspire a global passion for Maryland rye whiskey. So I hear, we obviously very focused on Maryland rye whiskey. Global is a very important part. So to be speaking with a group of folks in Germany today completely warms my heart, and saying that we're starting to make a charge towards our mission. This is a big moment for us. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Well,
we get our name from a farm that's 22 miles. So, oh gosh, that's a doozy for me. That's probably
okay. You just need the German. Okay, 30 kilometers.
I was going to say
36
kilometers, maybe north of Baltimore.
1.6.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful farm that was started by the Vanderbilt family. It was known for thoroughbred horse racing. We still have horses on the farm, but they're more retired, and we've converted the farm more to support local agriculture for our whiskey. So we grow some of our rye on the farm. We grow 100% of our non-GMO corn on the farm. So, of course, rye has never been genetically modified, so we're very fortunate there. And we only use non-GMO corn as well. And so we grow those products on the farm. And then we also, you may have seen, like you mentioned earlier, Jason, 1909. Where does that come from? The farm was actually founded in 1925, but this little spring house was built in 1909. And if you open up the door to it, there's no floor. There's just limestone spring water coming up out of the earth. And we'll go up to the farm once to twice a week and collect that spring water. And we use it for proofing all of our whiskeys into the barrel when it comes off the still, and then out of the barrel into the bottle, if except cask strength, but Double Oak and Signature will use the spring water to proof the whiskeys from this spring house that was built in 1909. Here's a picture of one of our the aging barn that we have on the farm.
Oh, lovely. And I like how you say barn and not rick house, not warehouse. It's a barn. It's an aging barn.
We're on, we're farm people at the end of the day, so it's a barn, and this one holds about just over 2,200 barrels. We put some of our more prized whiskey here that is used 100% Sagamore grain, 100% Maryland oak, those types of products which aren't out yet. And then we have 2 more aging barns down by the distillery that between the 3 of them can hold just about a little over 63,000 barrels.
All right. So it's not a small, tiny little production side. You really mean business.
Well, we're gearing up for Germany. That's all,
Good.
And so, but to really start with it all in the importance of quality and excellence and everything that we do. If you notice, we only do one thing. We only do rye whiskey. We don't do gin, vodka, or anything else. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we want to become very, very good at one thing, and it's rye whiskey. And so that's why it's very important for us to be growing our own grain as well and having control of everything from start to finish. And it's just like a chef working with the best meats, fish, vegetables as possible. So we work very closely with 3 farms here in Maryland. And you'll notice this tool here that has these little holes and slots and openings in it. When we receive grain from other farms, we take probes throughout the back of the truck from at least 12 to 14 different areas that take layers of the grain from top to bottom all the way in, and we bring it into our lab and we spend over an hour analyzing it. We look for how, if there's any off notes, off flavors, we heat it up. We look for moisture content. We look to see how clean it is, things along those lines, because we won't accept it if it doesn't meet our standards. So really it does start very much with the grain we receive. And if it doesn't meet our quality, we will reject the load. But that's one of the reasons we started doing more and more here in Maryland, so we could control it more. We noticed occasionally we have rejected 2 or 3 trucks when they didn't come from Maryland, you know, and it's an odd conversation to have with a trucker who just spent 2 days driving to you to say you're going home with that grain. But, you know, we won't take it if it doesn't meet our standards. So it's great working with the farmers. We work with 3 farms in Maryland. We bought silos on their farm. We hold them to a quality standard, but not a yield per acre. We agree upon a price that works well for them as well as us. By removing the middleman, they can actually make money on it. Before, they only got money if it was tilled into the earth and used as a cover crop from the government. It's one of the few uninsurable crops there is. So we share the risk with them we buy the seed up front, and we'll take that out-of-pocket expense. So we'll share the risk with them in a true shared value partnership, and something we scale up. We started year 1 about 4 years ago with 58,000 pounds.
Which is nothing, right? I mean, you can go through that in not even a week, right?
That's correct. And then this year we harvested a little around 1 million pounds, which is still only it's still less than a third of what we use.
Yeah.
But we're scaling up with quality in mind. We work at the University of Maryland Department of Agriculture, growing 5 different varietals and understanding the yields and flavor notes that each rye strand can put out and varietal can put out, and just trying to learn as much about rye whiskey as possible.
Fantastic.
So this one's one of Jason's, as he mentioned, and maybe one of Germany's favorites, just maybe a more sophisticated palate there. This is our Double Oak, which is a beautiful whiskey, has beautiful color on it. So we will take we'll take our original blend of 2 straight ryes, aged separately in American oak barrels, and we'll go ahead and we will age them for 5 years. And after aging them for 5 years, we'll go ahead and we'll put them back into another new American oak barrel. And this time, we cut grooves down the inside of the staves. Creates about 25% more surface area for the whiskey and the wood to interact with. And then instead of doing a heavy char and burning that off, we just toast it. And we do 18 more months in there. So it ends up being about 6.5 years old when it comes out, 96.6 proof, or 48.3% ABV.
Thank you.
I think the color on this is spectacular. It's like this beautiful copper. The mouthfeel on it is really interesting. Some beautiful oils. It has this very nice, interesting toasted oakiness, a little bit of smoke and sweetness in there. The mouth, because we've gone up in ABVs, has a nice baking spice up front.
Christmas in a bottle.
Yeah, yes.
I'm sorry, everyone in Germany, Christmas in a bottle, okay? I mean, very quickly, for all the people in Germany, we don't understand that anytime we have the word straight on the bottle in America, and if it's bourbon or rye, never do we add color. All right? And so all this is natural. This is what we get from 2 barrels. Now, if I remember correctly, it's heavily toasted, but there is a light char, isn't there, for the second barrel?
Correct. I mean,
because of the legal requirements, right?
Correct. So if we didn't get up to basically a char 1,
we
couldn't continue. Yeah, we could. And if you look at the stave, it's kind of half of it is a char 1 and half of it's heavy toasted. The flames don't quite get all the way up it.
Wonderful.
But that helps us keep our nose clean with the U.S. government and the term straight. Yeah. And so really beautiful. Just like you said, I think Christmas in a bottle has kind of got this nice toasted oakiness, some beautiful baking spices, a little toasted macaroon, coconut, a little bit of toasted marshmallow. So this one's fun and unique and different. You see a lot of multi-casks scotches, of course.
Yep.
You see some bourbons. You just don't see many
Ryes.
ryes. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is my favorite. I just love this bottle. Now, we talked about the time frame here for the Maryland. Now, what you do is you take your original bottle, basically what we just had, and then you actually take this and then you age it for another 18 months. So that means the rollout of this for the Maryland rye will be 18 months later. So please be patient with us with this one. This will be the first. We have this already with 20%, and it'll go up to 100% within 2 years. And this will follow 18 months later, just so everyone understands that problem that we have. We can't magically go back in time and change something.
Yes, thank you,
Not
Jason.
yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We always are anxious to get our whiskey in there, but we also we love the quality. We love the age statements and what they're bringing to us. So, it's funny being at it for 8 years. I'm always like, what's another 20 months at this point? Been at it since 2000, end of 2012, beginning of 2013. So you've come this far. It's interesting. Just a little more time, and time in that barrel really does work.
Yep. And it does make a difference. And that second barrel just magically transforms this into juice of the gods. All right. So Christmas in a bottle. I just love this. I'm just absolutely crazy about this bottle. I think we're going to sell it very, very quickly. One store, dinewhiskey.de. They will have this in stock next week. And he said, Jason, I want 2 cases, 2 cases, 2 cases. I said, I think you need 3 cases of this at least. He said, if you say so, Jason. And he's going to sell out within minutes, I'm sure. All right. So, someone says this is a new year in a glass for him. All right, Norbert, thank you very much. For me, it's more of my Christmas cake and so on. Here we have the barrel char, a little bit of coconut, the great rye nose, the mint, the fantastic herbs, full, heavy. This is just fantastic. All right, good. Should we go back to the slides?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I thank you. So very good. 48.3%. Good stuff here.
So just to kind of give you a little bit of, and I apologize, I need to get better about my conversions of gallons and pounds and to the metric system. I'm embarrassed. But behind the distillery, we have 3 silos. Each one holds about 90,000 pounds worth of grain. Yep. We use a roller mill. And then, of course, once we go through a roller mill, we'll go through our weigh bins and scale bins. And then we'll go ahead and put it into our mash tub cooker, where we'll do a cook for about 4 to 5 hours.
Silos have about 40,000 kilos, and your mash tun is about 22,000 liters. So it's not small by any measure.
Yes, thank you. And then we do use a sour mash back set. We like, 1, the flavor notes it's imparts. 2, we like the fact that it helps a little bit with sustainability as far as having already a heated cook, using less water for each cook. We also really like the consistencies it helps bring in our flavor profile of our whiskeys. Not that there's anything wrong with a sweet mash, but this is just something that we like as far as our style of whiskey. And then, of course, after a cook from there, we'll go into one of our 9 6,500-gallon fermenters, which is what, 30?
I was just looking. Yep.
24. Yeah.
24,000 liters. 24, you have 9 fermenters, 24,000 liters each.
24,000 liters. Thank you. Yeah. And then we'll do a 3 to 4 day open top fermentation there after we pitch our yeast. And then from there, we'll go into our beer well. And we have a column still, a beer column still we use from Vendôme, who we know makes some great stills and has been at
Vendôme is the Foresights of America. They are the Rolls-Royce, the Mercedes. If you're going to have anything made out of copper in America, Vendôme is the place to go, all right?
Yep, they've been doing it for a long time. And so this has 19 distillation trays. It's 40 feet tall, or
12 meters.
12 meters. And so as it goes through these distillation trays, obviously we're hitting it with a tremendous amount of steam, around 212 Fahrenheit. That one I'll have to leave for you.
100 degrees Celsius.
Thank you. And so obviously heating up alcohol and water evaporates at a different temperature than alcohol, stripping out that water, stripping out the grain, going through our condensers. And we do what we call a triple distillation. So once we go through the column still once, We'll go up through our condensers. We'll go through our low wine box, and then we'll go through our doubler number one. A doubler or a thumper is similar to a small little pot still, if you will. It's 350 gallons. This gives us a chance to raise the ABV again. So the first run, we might be somewhere around 125 or 62.5% ABV. And then from there, we like to continue up to about 65%, 65% ABV on the final run. We usually stick between 65, 67% ABV in that type of final run. And we'll go through two different doublers. So we'll go through the column still, doubler number one, condenser, low wine, high wine, doubler number two, higher wine. And then it goes over to the processing building where we'll go ahead, weigh it, gauge it, and proof it. And then we'll do a barrel entry proof of 120 or 60% ABV into a new American charred oak barrel, typically a char number 3.
Good. Now, I've never ever seen anyone using two doublers before. Is that something just my ignorance, or is that something very specific and very special for Sagamore?
We think it's something very unique and very special to Sagamore. I have never seen it either.
No. Okay.
It is to kind of take a little bit of it was an informative kind of play based off of what you see Irish and Scotch whiskeys doing, as well as Maryland used to be known for 3-chamber stills.
Ah, yes, thank you.
And so, as you may know, Leopold Brothers has redone that and done an amazing job of bringing back what was a famous type of still. I do believe 3-chamber stills, as cool as that history is, there's some inefficiencies there. So we tried to put a modern day efficiency spin on it, if you will.
All right, just once again, just for us to understand how big this thing is. 12 meters high, 60 centimeters in diameter. You have the 19 plates in there, and then you go through the first doubler and then the second doubler. Now, 67% in America, you're not allowed to go too high when you distill something with a bourbon or rye, so we have to keep it under that. Was it 68%, or what was it again?
Actually, yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, you really should. Well, you should not go above
140,
160 proof or 80% ABV.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it starts approaching the neutral grain spirit territory. But as I mentioned, we tend to hang around the 67%, where we can still catch a lot of those conagers and so forth, and the flavor notes we want. We don't want to distill those out.
Yeah. Thank you, because that's where the flavor is. That's where that actually in the wood and the barrel is where that actually turns into that goodness that we have at this moment. So we have in total 3 bottles that have made it to Germany. Those are your standard range, which are also all over basically the US, not all the states yet, but a lot of different places. UK, Germany, and also in Asia is basically your focus for the next year or so with Sagamore. But there are limited bottlings that we are not going to get just yet. I'm going to mention the bottle and the bond. Now, if you're in Maryland, if you're in Baltimore, go by the distillery, pick up your bottle and bond, bring it back to Germany, and everyone's going to be happy. But at the moment, we're going to have to wait a year or two before we see something, and we're going to wait for that maybe 6 years to actually be reached before we get to have that beautiful product here as well. So first of all, just these 3 bottles, right?
Yes, correct. And it's as you know, we're just now entering our age of whiskey. There is I would say if you were in Baltimore and you came this week, you could probably get a bottle of bond. After next week, probably not.
Right.
But one of the reasons we're doing that is we are holding it back. It was a 4-year-old bottle and bond, as we know. That's the minimum requirement. But we want to go ahead and get it to probably, we think, upwards of a 6, maybe 7-year-old. So holding back now, and I appreciate everyone's patience, it will allow us next year to have a 5-year-old, and then obviously a 6, and then we'll decide if it needs to go any higher than that. So allowing us to just do small releases to just as a thank you and let you know that we are getting there. But the more we kind of hold back, the more we can get behind it for larger releases down the road. So and so we do have the bottled and bond. And when we do have some limited reserve releases right now, currently in the US, we have an 8-year-old. And then in the spring, we'll have our rye finished in some rum casks, and then next fall we'll have our rye finished in some sherry casks. And I don't know why you wouldn't be able to get your hands on those if that's of interest to you, Jason.
Of course it is, Brian. Of course it is. Yes, yes, yes.
I feel like I owe you that. That's the least I can do for you.
And that would be great if we could have a BCB next year, you know? Who knows?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes, we'll figure that out. We'll make sure of it. So,
Yep.
some pictures of our distillery. Kind of get at night, a little bit of.
Beautiful.
This is the distillery in front of us. To the right is the building where we do all the bottling and barreling, and we have our visitor center in there as well. A closer view of, you can see the column still here,
Yep.
as well as the two doublers at the bottom in the building there. Kind of a more aerial view. The building in the back there by the water tower is again the distillery with the fermenters. We also have a small pot still we use as well. And then the middle building is where we do all our barrel filling and bottling. And then we also have a visitor center and a tasting room and a cocktail lounge. And then the left building with the gray roof is our restaurant.
Wow.
And this is our little guy. The big still is named Penny.
Mm-hmm.
We can make 15 53-gallon barrels every 8 hours off of that. This one is a 250-gallon pot still batch system, so we can do about a half a barrel every 8 hours. It's kind of a pilot system, or I also refer to it as our spice rack.
Excellent. I like that.
So,
good.
One of our last and by no means least is our cask strength, which is kind of just a big, bold, high ABV version of the very first one you tried tonight.
Mm-hmm. So
we do put a little bit more age on this. The first one was 4 to 6 of our straight rye. The cask strength, though, is 4 to 7. And of course, hangs around typically around 56, 57% ABV.
Yep.
But I think, again, what I always find and seems to be some consistent feedback is this one has a very beautiful, a lot more of that baking spice pepper up front, black pepper, white pepper, but you get some nice dark chocolate malt malty undertones, some nice caramel in it as well. But I think people are always pleasantly surprised at the drinkability of something with this high ABV. It's great adding some water. It's great to do that as well. If you want to cut it, it becomes another expression, which is fabulous. But it, for high ABV, I think people always expect it to kind of burn your throat. But it's fairly palatable for this high ABV. And that, again, I attribute that to the 2 mash bills that we have.
This is also now still just not from Maryland at the moment. The next batch probably will be. The only batch that we have from Maryland juice at the moment is the Signature Rye. So please buy that. Maybe buy a bottle, save one, buy another bottle with 50%, buy another with maybe 70, 80, buy the last with 100 and compare them in 2 or so years. That's going to be a great thing. And you can do the same with the other bottles as well. This is over in Germany. We're at 79 euros and 90 cents. And I think I forgot to mention that we're at 77 euros for the double wood. So both of these are just beautiful, beautiful products at a fairly good price, I'm going to say here. All right.
Yeah. So that's, I at this point welcome any questions, but and again, thank you everybody for your time and interest and support and so forth. It's been an amazing experience to come here and work with you, Jason. And I'm very, very excited about getting into Germany, and very, very excited about getting rid of these tariffs and getting that savings onto you all.
Yeah. That's going to be very, very nice. And I just love the fact that we have the product already. It's here. We have 600 bottles in total. That we have the palette here with the 3 different things, about a third, a third, and third. And I'm just gonna say, hurry up and buy some double wood. Is going to go quickly. And then probably our cask strength. I'm going to just use the words here from Dirk from Expedition Whiskey. I'm home. Cask strength. Yummy. All right. So we just mentioned this a second ago, but I can add this again here. This is between the 4 and 7 years of age, and the signature rye is here between 4 and 6. So it's a tiny little bit older than the cask strength, right?
Yes. Yep. Just a little bit. And Jason, I would think, depending on how quickly you reorder double oak, but definitely the next order with cask will be with Maryland in it. Everything we're kind of doing and going forward when we can always starts blending in our stuff. So, again, we're excited, and it'll take a little longer to get cask to be 100% ours. Again, we like that 7-year-old in there. So that'll take a little closer to 2.5 years to get us there.
Right. Now, I think it's just exciting that we are actually at the very forefront of this transition. So you were very transparent. Even the bottle, it says here, distilled in Indiana. You're not hiding anything. You decided not to do gin. You decided not to do vodka. You decided to do whiskey. You had the great experts in there helping you, guiding you, and coaching you along the way. And now when you're having your own whiskey that's matured enough and you're saying, hey, not too quickly, we're going to have the good stuff, we're going to wait for the 6 years here, I must commend you for doing that, I think, in the correct manner. You've experimented with some very limited additions that have been very, very interesting. One was vermouth, I think, wasn't it? One was cognac. You had a couple different things there. Very, very interesting. All locally, very, very limited release, but you're experimenting, you're trying different things out there, and I'm really, really excited about what's going to happen in the future here with Sagamore, and I'm very proud to be part of this over here in Europe, and specifically here for Germany. It's going to be a very interesting next couple of years with you guys together.
Yeah, no, we're very excited as well about we love the fact that Germany and the German consumer really understands whiskey, and it has appreciation and a fabulous palate, and is a very educated consumer. And we have nothing to hide. As also mentioned earlier, we never add anything ever to our products. It's all straight from fermentation and grain and aged in from the oak. Nothing is ever added. And one of the things that always inspired us from day one, not that we would have probably done it any differently, is knowing that Germany was a very important market to us, and knowing that the quality standards you all insist on. It's just said, start like that on day one, because you want to go to Germany someday, right?
Okay, very good. So Anik, she's actually calls herself a food pairing connoisseur. She actually has her own little blog and so on, and she goes into companies and does all just food pairings, all right? And so she says here, your 83 proof would actually be with goat cheese here, with a cassis syrup on the crispy rye bread. I can really imagine that rye bread thing going on there. The double oak, of course, with the chocolate there, with maybe a little bit of coffee bean. Anik knows I'm not a great fan of the coffee bean, but she likes it. And the cask strength, she'd go for the hickory smoked ham glazed barbecue ribs. I'm getting hungry. What about you? I mean, come on.
That sounds amazing. I think absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. I couldn't agree with more. And I am now hungry.
Yeah, it's almost supper time for you over there. It's time for us to almost go to bed over here. So if there's any more questions, they can be asked in German or English. I'll be able to translate. Don't worry. Please ask now. We have Brian here for this one time only. And so next year we'll have him again sometime, I hope. But at the moment, he can answer any questions. I can, of course, try to answer all your questions. If I don't know something, I'll go back and ask him and find out. Now, if COVID allows and my appointment calendar allows, I might be in the States in August. I might come by. My mom lives down in Virginia, so I land in Washington, D.C. anyways. And so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump up to Baltimore. So I might be able to finally visit you there. Who knows?
We would love to have you.
Thank you, Brian and Jason, for the presentation of the 3 excellent whiskeys. I will order the 3 whiskeys for my shop. Very good. And Jason, I hope we'll see each other again very soon. Achim, very, very good. And here, this is the number 3. The ABV does not hit as hard as expected. Has more herbs, a little bit of pepper, and has a little bit of that. Yeah, that herbal moment there is very, very good. All right, Sven says, a big up to Brian Sagamore. Is delicious. All samples are empty, even the cask strength. Look at there.
Thank you.
Okay, and here, is that someone from you? Is that part of your team?
Where is that?
I don't know. He said I can come over and do a pick, so who knows?
Oh, no. But Sounds like somebody wants to come over and do a barrel pick. We'll have to figure
Yeah,
something out.
exactly. Well, we'll see what happens there. Very, very good.
Yeah, so
So,
we do have we do some barrel picks. 55% ABV. Next year will be 7-year-old rye whiskey.
okay. So I'm just drinking a drink with it. Samuel Adam is fine. All right, very good. Now, this was something we did not talk about, but we talked about all the expressions being natural color. Now, are they all non-chilled filtered? That is something that we like to talk about in Germany a lot more. The cask strength, I'm sure, right?
Of course, we have. It's a really good question. What we experience is when it comes to anything 50% ABV and higher, absolutely we'd never. The low 41.5% ABV does go through a filtration process, a chill filtration process. Yep. And we use a plate and frame filter. We tried to do as minimal as we can. We really very, very minimal, just enough to make sure you don't have too many unwanted cloud ester cloud balls in there. And then the double oak also goes through an incredibly short. We really actually don't even chill it that much. It's like a flash chill, and a short filtration. But just because it is sitting a little bit below that 50% ABV to avoid what we refer to as flocking.
Right. And that's where it actually gets a little cloudy for those of us that don't understand what we're talking about. And in America, we have very cold winters, and we have a lot of people that like putting an ice cube in a tumbler and pouring it over that. And that's also something we have to remember, that that's very, very important, that the whiskey does not turn cloudy, right?
Yes, yeah, and a lot of times it can look even though there's nothing wrong with it, to the consumer, it can look unpleasant on the shelf and be discouraging when they say, "What is all that stuff inside that bottle? It looks weird." And so,
that's part of the whiskey education.
We have run a lot of triangular evaluations in our lab, and we have found we've run, on the low 41.5% ABV, we've run filtration and non-filtration, and we have a very conclusive, at least evidence here from the sensory team, that they can't really tell too much of a difference at all. We're pleasantly surprised with our technique that we're using. However, we do eliminate the flocking, which is important to us.
Okay. Very good. So you talked about the plans for the sherry. You talked about the plans. Are there any plans for any red wine casks or some wine barrel choices for the finishings? Maybe just locally for the States or for Maryland?
Not anytime soon. We did in the past, we had, not necessarily red wine. We had a port finish, and we've done cognac. We've done muscatel. We did a vintners, which was a blend of Shiraz, sherry, and cab barrels. Right. That was one of my favorites. But I don't have anything lying in any wine barrels at this time, for the most part.
Just very, very quickly, I'll share my screen here and show the website, your website, by the way. So we have here the 3 bottles that we have in Germany, our signature, our cask strength, and our double oak here. And then you also have, at least in the States, your bottled bond. You have your 8-year-old, and then you have your barley wine cask, rye finish whiskey, which I've not heard about. Interesting. You also have your tequila finish. I think that's all gone, isn't it? And you have the ale cask, and you have that so-called Manhattan finish as well. And you've been experimenting with some other things, since that's very, very exciting.
Yeah, so we'll occasionally team up with a brewery, and they'll age their beer in our freshly dumped rye barrels. Then they'll send those barrels back, and then we'll finish in their barrels. So that's how you get the ale casks and the barley wine. And it's been fun to do those collaborations with them. And then the Manhattan finish, which we will bring back, I think slated for maybe fall 2023, which was originally we took a 4-year-old, 9-month-old rye whiskey, and we sourced cherry brandy barrels, vermouth barrels, and bitter barrels. And we finished in each one of those for almost 2 years. Wow. And so, over just about 6 years old or so, and then deconstructed the flavor notes you would get from a Manhattan cocktail, but it was 51.5% ABV. It was not a bottled cocktail. It was very much a rye whiskey that had complementary notes of a Manhattan, a little bit of bright cherry an herbaceousness, like herbs, baking spice. So it had complements of that, but you were very much drinking a rye whiskey at the end of the day. One of the reasons we kept it at the higher ABV of 51.5%.
Great. I'm going to stop this, or we're going to end now with the statement from Marco here over in Germany. He says, Sagamore, my new rye favorite. What else can we say? Come on. Well done. Well done. Brian, thank you very much for your time. You have a next appointment real soon, so we're going to get off this call here, and I'm just going to invite everyone who needs a bottle, contact me personally, whiskeyjason@gmail.com. I will be able to provide that with an address of an online retailer, with a brick and mortar store, or also you can actually get them from me as well. There is the Signature Rye here for $55.90. There's the Cask strength for $79.90, and there is the Double Oak over here in Germany for $77.90. When they're out, they're out. We're going to order more, but that's going to be next year. So that's that. Thank you very much for being here. All the best. Brian, the last words are yours.
Thank you, Jason, for setting this up. Thank you for always being a great partner and representation of the brand. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and giving us the opportunity, and appreciate the feedback. And hopefully someday we'll get a chance to see you here at the distillery in Baltimore, Maryland. Until then, have a great holiday season, and please be safe.
Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.